This is Frank Islam, Chairman and Chief FI Investment Group, and your host of Washington Current Review, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today we are fortunate to have a dear friend, Sanjeev Joshipura, who also runs the India Diaspora. And he's going to tell you all about India Diaspora, which is a vital resource, and they have made a significant contribution not only to the United States but India as well. So it's good to see you, Sanjeev. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
So what's the purpose of this organization? What does it do?
So thank you, Frank. So Indiaspora is a non-profit organization. We were founded in 2012 by a gentleman in California, a very successful Indian American gentleman named M.R. Rangaswamy, who made it very big in the heyday of technology and then retired, if you will, from corporate life at the ripe old age of 40. But he now maintains a busier schedule 20 years hence than most people who are fully employed. But in any event, we are a group of individuals leading Indian Americans and Indians in various walks of life, in various professions, various parts of the country, who are really prominent community leaders in their respective spaces. And as a nonprofit group, we come together, and our mission statement is to transform the success of Indian Americans into meaningful impact worldwide.
Very well said, into meaningful impact. So it have a strong influence and impact, and you will be the one who will be making the difference in people's lives.
Well, we have a team.
At least you will give a try. So when did this organization started? How has it been growing? How big it is?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit more about the India Diaspora.
Sure. So started in 2012, like I said, so we are 6 years on now. But for the first 4 years until 2016, it was run purely as a volunteer-driven effort by MR and a group of people.
M.R. Rangaswamy.
M.R. Rangaswamy.
Who lives in Silicon Valley.
Who absolutely lives in San Francisco. In 2016, the board of directors decided that they wanted to really professionalize and institutionalize the organization. So they brought me on board as the first staff member. I'm now the executive director of the organization. And I have a wonderful team of 3 other staff members who work with me on a daily basis, on a full-time basis.
And your office is located where?
Located very close to DuPont Circle in downtown Washington, D.C.
Okay, very good.
So basically, Frank, the Indiaspora organization is, like I said, a group of very prominent community leaders, and we engage in 3 sort of specific verticals that are our fortes. In no order of importance, but they are: 1, we increase the socio-political visibility in a nonpartisan way of Indian Americans in this country.
So it's a political engagement.
Correct.
An individual engagement.
Absolutely, absolutely. In the social and political sort of the
Correct,
realms.
Correct.
Second is we work on philanthropy. We are a philanthropic catalyst, and I can tell you a little bit more about that.
We'll talk a little bit in a minute.
Yes, absolutely.
I call it power of purposeful philanthropy. We'll talk about it now.
You're exactly right, Frank. That's well put. Lastly, we work to enhance bilateral relations between the U.S. and India, and now the global connect with the Indian diaspora all over the world.
Oh, so you're trying to expand your horizon beyond the North America to the other parts of the world as well.
That's right, Frank. You know, the eventual vision for Indiaspora going out 6 or 7 years is to be the Davos for the global Indian. And what I mean by that is, if you are a prominent person of Indian origin, regardless of where you live, you might be in Australia, Canada, India, the US, UK, South Africa, Dubai, what have you, we would like you to be part of the Indiaspora network, regardless of your profession. Now, this is a goal that's going to take some time to achieve. It's not going to happen tomorrow. And as stepping stones towards that, we are working on global connections with the Indian diaspora, prominent Indian diaspora in various different countries.
Good. And so who are your some of the members that you want to talk about it? Who are those?
Well, Frank, I can certainly talk about one member who I think we both know. For your viewers, Frank Islam is one of our Founder Circle members, our highest tier of membership.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank, for your support. Frank has been a big supporter and a big contributor, not just financially, but in terms, actually more importantly, of his enthusiasm and his ideas and his vision. And we do appreciate that, Frank. But in addition to that, we have members in various different realms. We have a lot of members that are based in California and the Bay Area that are part of the tech community. But we also have members in New York, Washington, D.C., which are our 2 other sort of biggest circles outside of California. And then we have members in Chicago, Dallas, Houston, a lot of the other big cities of the US, and we have about a total of, I'd say, 80 to 85 members right now, individuals all. We don't take corporate memberships. And of them, about 10 are in India and the rest are in the United States at this point.
Do you get together with them quite frequently?
Yes, absolutely. So we have various different events.
Tell us a little bit about the event.
Sure. So we have several kinds of events, Frank. I'd say they're small, medium, large events, depending on what the purpose of the event is. But our annual flagship event is the Indiaspora Forum. And this is our annual leadership event.
And this is being held this year in California, correct?
That's exactly right. It's in San Jose, September 7th to 9th this year. We rotate it to different parts of the country. And the goal here is it's an exclusive invitation-only event, just like Indiaspora is an invitation-only network. We invite about 150 people, and we get together over a weekend in a really nice resort environment where we talk about different topics, all the various aspects that Indiaspora engages in. And it fosters really excellent high-level camaraderie between our members and selected other invitees.
And also allows people to network, to get to know each other.
Absolutely, there's no question.
Okay.
And they love that because
and share ideas.
Share ideas, and you know, the members and the other invitees love that because Indiaspora is really the only place.
This is a way to connect.
Way to connect. It's very eclectic. It's the only place where if you're a leading Indian American doctor or lawyer or public policy expert or business, venture capitalist, academician, artist, sports person, media person, you all get together at the same place.
Let's talk about a topic that is near and dear to you and me, and to a lot of Indian Americans as well, is the taking the U.S.-India relations to the next height. And what exactly the India diaspora is doing. Do you have the character, the conscience, the capacity, the capability to take it to the next height?
So Frank, as I always say, in response to questions like these, our members do. Our members is what makes us, Frank, and people like yourself have been instrumental, as you know. The key here, so just by way of background a little bit, very quickly, whenever there's a high-level presidential visit from the U.S. to India or a prime ministerial visit from India to the U.S., Indiaspora always has delegations of our prominent members that are engaged on the sidelines of these meetings. We like to call it track 1.5 diplomacy, where track 1 diplomacy is government to government, but track 1.5 involves the nonprofit sector, think tanks, the corporate world, etc. And as individuals meeting sort of within the U.S.-India umbrella, we'll discuss issues of importance in the bilateral relationship at a sort of 50,000-foot level. We don't get involved in lobbying for specific companies or anything of that sort, but we will discuss issues like innovation entrepreneurship, philanthropy, healthcare, renewable energy and climate change. Education, absolutely. Trade and economics, industry, that kind of thing. And then we debrief the governments on both sides about what
Do they take advantage of that in Indian government?
More and more I've been noticing that the Indian government has been receptive, not just receptive, I would argue as proactively sought out to seek the voices of prominent diaspora.
They think it's a vital resource, they can make a significant contribution. I want to shift you talk a little bit of philanthropy as we started the conversation. Yeah. What area are you engaged in philanthropic, not only in the United States, but India as well? See, education is one of the priorities that I have in philanthropy, and I believe the philanthropy is hands up and charity is hands down. And the philanthropy can make a sustainable difference in people's life.
There's no question.
As a result, I have given millions of dollars to India, to Aligarh Muslim University. We talked about it, to Bill Frank and Devi Islamic School of Management. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about, this is a very important topic. As you know, President Kennedy has said that to whom much is given, much is expected. So tell us a little bit about your engagement, what you're doing.
So, Frank, the overarching theme here is our members are very interested and very involved in philanthropy overall of two different types, right? So one is philanthropy to India from the US by Indian Americans, but the other is philanthropy here within the US.
There are three other organizations. Can you talk about that, that they're very much engaged in this kind of things?
Absolutely.
US-India Foundation is one of them.
Indeed. American India Foundation, that's exactly right.
You're absolutely right.
There's Pratham.
Yes, Pratham, right.
There's various Ekal Vidyalaya, Akshay Patra.
Right.
There's various organizations and several others. In fact, Frank, you'll be interested to know, I think we've already spoken briefly about this, but one of our big projects right now is that we have convened a group of 8 CEOs of large and small Indian American philanthropic organizations. So by that I mean organizations based in the US, but that are focused on giving to India. We've convened 8 of these CEOs, and what we are asking them to do is we are asking them to get together and talk about how not to work in their respective silos, but how to work on synergies and sort of, doing some things that are beneficial for the industry, for the sector as a whole. So in other words, don't slice up the pie, but grow the pie. And we've received a very enthusiastic response. We have monthly meetings with this task force, as we are calling it. And we are working on 4 or 5 concrete objectives as to how these sort of players can come together to really benefit India in various different realms of activity, philanthropically.
I want to talk a little bit about the India diaspora's success. What have you seen, what it has been, and why it is a vital resource for India to make a significant difference. And that's what Indian diaspora can do.
Yeah.
To make sure that they can make a contribution in terms of the economy, the job, the healthcare. There's so many things.
Absolutely.
To make a difference. They are the vital resource for India as well.
Indeed, you're right, Frank, and there are not many better exemplars of this than yourself in many different ways.
Thank you very much.
Philanthropically, business, lots of different, sociopolitically. So I feel like I'm preaching to the choir a little bit here when I'm talking to you.
Well,
about
I want
this.
you to talk to the audience also.
Indeed. So I think the key thing is for the Indian diaspora, whether it's in the US or in other countries, to really remain strongly focused and engaged. And I think it is incumbent in part upon India, and India is now doing this, as I just alluded to, seeking the engagement and soliciting the engagement.
And this way they believe they can achieve India's fullest potential.
There's no question. There's no question. It's a vital resource, as you correctly said. So, there are various ways in which the Indian diaspora is involved and getting more so with India. The obvious sphere is technology, right? Mm-hmm. But underneath that, I think there are less visible, but nonetheless vital areas of cooperation that occur that may not grab the headlines on a day-to-day basis, right? There's philanthropy, as you talked about, which I think in the longer term is actually a very, very sustainable tie that binds the two countries, because I think that inevitably brings the two countries closer together.
Well, the democracy and the diversity are the values that binds us together.
There's clearly, absolutely.
America is the oldest democracy, India is the largest democracy. Those are the two values, democracy, diversity, that brings the people together. But also, it's just not the job creation, entrepreneurship, innovation the Indian diaspora can help India to achieve its full potential, but also arts and culture and language also.
Absolutely.
Do you have some ideas in those areas too as well?
There's no question.
Tap upon those resources?
Absolutely. We have several members who think like you in this area, Frank, and they are very keen on what one might call the soft power dimension of
I like that. I like that.
I'll just give you a couple of concrete examples. In Diaspora was instrumental, one of the organizations in partnership working with other organizations as well, in getting the official United States Postal Service Diwali stamp in 2016. This was a symbolic issue for our community, for the Indian Americans living here, and indeed a matter of pride for many Indians living in India who we heard from. M.R. Rangaswamy, who I just mentioned, met President Barack Obama in the Oval Office to talk about this. We got resolutions introduced in the House and the Senate, working with other nonprofit groups, and perhaps equally as important as anything else, we actually got 20,000 people from our community, Indian Americans, to write letters to the US Post Office demanding that there be a Diwali stamp. So this was a key sort of win for the community in 2016. In addition to that, speaking of directly arts and culture, in Diaspora screened a movie, or helped to screen a movie, by a gentleman in our network who used to live in Houston, now lives in Washington, a gentleman named Mandar Apte. This is a documentary called From India with Love. And I know he's met you, Frank, and this documentary really aims to bring the best of the Indian culture of non-violence, or as Mandar calls it, the lack of violence, to the troubled times in America where we see an increase of, gun shootings and violence and homicides in schools and so forth. And it was a very well-received documentary, including by numerous police departments all over the country.
As you know, the art and culture are very important ingredient as well, and the language.
Yeah.
Also, art transcends all boundary. Art represents the best of the humanity. As President Kennedy said, art nourishes the roots of our culture. Do you have some ideas to engage some of the metropolitan you have in New York, and also Kennedy Centers and several other temple of art, to engage them and I know some of the people are doing that in Kennedy centers.
Absolutely.
Is that something you want to broaden the horizon and get deeply engaged in it?
You know, Frank, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think given your wealth of knowledge and experience in the DC area, especially with organizations like the Kennedy Center, I think we could utilize the expertise not only of yourself but of others in the Washington area who are our members to really bring forth a sort of an event or a program or a series of programs, if you will, that really showcase and highlight the strength and most importantly the contributions of the Indian diaspora here in America. I'll just give you a very quick example.
Sure.
Not many people know this, but over the past 5 years, the Indian diaspora in the United States has contributed well in excess of $500 million to American universities.
Yes, they have.
There's been a lot of work, a lot of contributions going to India. You mentioned some yourself, but there's a lot of contributions going here into America.
And we need to highlight that.
We need to highlight that, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I know MR, when I met last time, MR was going to some place where which place was it? Princeton.
Exactly right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So
who have done and what did they have done?
So one of our members, a gentleman named Sumir Chadda, who lives in the Bay Area, he has opened up a center at Princeton University in memory of his parents, of his father. And essentially this center will focus on India programming. It will lead Princeton's efforts, sort of be an umbrella organization at Princeton that really channelizes and directs the India programming of an excellent university like Princeton and brings to bear all its various resources, focusing on India in many different realms, whether it's bilateral relations, whether it's philanthropy, whether it's technology, academic collaboration. They're gonna sort of work on it all.
So you believe that the diversity makes us stronger?
There's no
diversity
question.
brings us together, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
E
pluribus unum.
Pardon?
E pluribus unum.
That is very well said. That's a word President Obama used, I think, once. And also, the important part is, if you're together, we can help shape a better future for America.
Absolutely.
So what's your final thought in terms of the taking the India diaspora to the next height? What would you say 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, forget the 10 years, if I sit down and talk with you, Sanjeev, what would you do that you have done that has made a meaningful difference as you started the conversation with?
I think continue to provide concrete examples in each of our 3 areas as a philanthropic catalyst, as a enhancer of bilateral relations between the US and India and global connections with the Indian diaspora all over the world, and increasing socio-political visibility here in the US of prominent Indian Americans, to be able to point to concrete examples in each of these 3 areas of what Indiaspora has really done to bring the Indian diaspora to the forefront of the American and global consciousness as leaders in the world and a force for good in this world.
Very good, very well said. Sanjeev, thank you for coming here. I appreciate it. And let's make sure that we continue this dialogue. Next time I'll talk about the civic engagement. You talk about the individual engagement, political engagement, civic engagement, why that is important
Absolutely.
for us and for Indian diaspora and for the India as well. This is Frank Islam wishing you a great week, and thank you for watching.